The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead as Marcus Thompson pushed his cleaning cart through the empty corridors of Grand Central Mall. It was 9:30 p.m., and the last few shopkeepers were pulling down their shutters, marking the beginning of his nightly routine. At 45 years old, Marcus had spent the last 10 years of his life keeping these floors spotless, though few people ever noticed him during the day. Tonight felt different somehow. Maybe it was the autumn wind that whistled through the automatic doors, or perhaps it was the old family photo he had found while cleaning his apartment earlier that day. The photo showed a much younger Marcus, standing next to his parents and holding a baby, his sister Jasmine, whom he hadn't seen in 20 years. Marcus reached into his pocket and touched the worn photograph, then adjusted his blue janitor uniform and name tag. The badge might not have been prestigious, but it gave him a sense of purpose. He took pride in knowing that when morning came, shoppers would walk on gleaming floors and see crystal-clear windows, even if they never knew who made it all happen. Starting from the west entrance, Marcus began his usual cleaning route. He liked to work systematically, moving from one section to another like a chess player planning his moves. First came the food court, where the day's chaos always left its mark. Half-empty soda cups, forgotten napkins, and the occasional French fry hiding under tables kept him busy for the first hour. As he mopped near the Chinese restaurant, his thoughts drifted back to Sunday family dinners from his childhood. The smell of his mother's cooking, his father's deep laugh, and baby Jasmine's tiny hands reaching for everything on the table. Those memories felt like scenes from someone else's life now. He hadn't had a family dinner since his parents passed away, and Jasmine, well, that was a wound that never quite healed. The squeak of his mop against the floor echoed through the empty mall. Marcus liked these quiet hours when he could work undisturbed, letting his mind wander while his hands stayed busy. Sometimes he would talk to himself, sharing stories with the empty chairs and closed shops. Tonight, he found himself telling the story of his sister to a particularly shiny trash can. "You see," he said softly, "it wasn't anybody's fault, really. Times were hard back then. Parents had to make tough choices." He paused his mopping, leaning slightly on the handle. "But sometimes I wonder if she's out there somewhere, living a good life. Maybe she's got kids of her own now." The clock near the central fountain showed 11:15 p.m. when Marcus reached the east wing. He always saved this section for last because it had the best lighting for detailed work. Plus, the large windows offered a view of the city lights, making him feel less alone during the quiet hours. Tonight, those same windows reflected his own image. A tall, broad-shouldered black man with grained temples and kind eyes that his mother used to say could see straight into people's hearts. His dark skin had gained a few more wrinkles over the years, but his posture remained proud, something his father had taught him early on. "Stand tall, son. Your work is honest work." As Marcus refilled his bucket with fresh cleaning solution, the familiar scent of pine cleaner filled the air. He had tried other brands over the years, but always came back to this one. It reminded him of Christmas mornings when his mother would clean the whole house before anyone could open presents. The night guard, Bill, passed by on his rounds and waved, "Evening, Marcus. All quiet tonight." "Just the way I like it," Marcus replied with a small smile. Bill was one of the few people who regularly acknowledged him, and their brief nightly exchanges had become a comfortable part of his routine. Returning to his work, Marcus noticed a small handprint on one of the glass doors. As he sprayed it with cleaner, he remembered tiny handprints on windows from long ago. Jasmine's handprints. She used to follow him around the house when she was learning to walk, leaving little marks on every surface she could reach. The mall's speaker system crackled to life, playing soft music that would continue until morning. Marcus hummed along, his mop moving in rhythm with the melody. He had another 4 hours before his shift ended, and somewhere in the back of his mind, a quiet voice whispered that tonight might be different from all the other nights. The clock struck midnight as Marcus pushed his cleaning cart past the mall's enormous potted plants. These plants were real, not plastic like in some other malls, and Marcus took special care of them during his shifts. He had just finished spraying the broadleaves with water when he heard something unusual, a soft, muffled sound coming from behind the largest plant near the east entrance. At first, he thought it might be a cat that had somehow snuck into the mall. It wouldn't be the first time, but as he moved closer, the sound became clearer. It was crying, the unmistakable sound of a child's tears. Marcus set down his spray bottle carefully and walked around the giant pot. There, curled up in the corner between the plant and the wall, sat a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old, wearing a pink dress with white polka dots and light-up sneakers that blinked softly in the dim light. Her dark curly hair was tied up in two puffy ponytails, and her small hands were pressed against her face as her shoulders shook with quiet sobs. His heart skipped a beat. Finding a lost child was serious business, and as a black man working alone at night, Marcus knew he had to handle this situation very carefully. He'd seen too many times how people could jump to wrong conclusions, even when someone was just trying to help. "Hello there," he called softly, keeping his distance. "Are you okay?" The little girl jumped slightly and looked up, her eyes wide with fear and wet with tears. She pressed herself further into the corner, making herself as small as possible. Marcus took a step back, wanting to show her she had nothing to fear. He pointed to his name tag and spoke in the gentle voice he used to use with his sister when she had nightmares. "My name is Marcus Thompson. I work here at the mall. See my badge? I'm the person who keeps everything clean and nice for when people come shopping." The girl sniffled and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm lost," she whispered. "I can't find my mommy and daddy." "That must be scary," Marcus said, kneeling down so he wouldn't tower over her. He stayed a respectful distance away, making sure she had plenty of space. "Can you tell me your name?" "Lily," she said, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "Lily Carter." "It's nice to meet you, Lily. Those are really cool shoes you have there," Marcus said, noticing how the lights in her sneakers blinked with each tiny movement. This got him a small smile through the tears. "They're new," Lily said, looking down at her feet. "Mommy bought them today." Marcus nodded, keeping his movements slow and calm. "Would you like to help me find your parents? We can go to the security office. It's a safe place, and they have phones to call your mom and dad. Plus, they have comfortable chairs and even some juice boxes." Lily hesitated, looking at Marcus with uncertain eyes. You could see her thinking it over, probably remembering all the warnings about strangers that her parents had surely given her. "Tell you what," Marcus said, reaching for his radio. "I'll call my friend Bill. He's a security guard. He wears a uniform with shiny buttons and everything. Would you feel better if he came too?" Lily nodded, and Marcus made the call. "Bill? This is Marcus. I found a lost little girl near the east entrance. Could you come over? Her name is Lily." "On my way," Bill's voice crackled through the radio. While they waited, Marcus noticed something that made his breath catch. Lily had a small birthmark behind her ear, shaped like a tiny crescent moon. It was exactly like the one his sister Jasmine had been born with, a detail he remembered clearly from their childhood. "My grandmother used to say that moon-shaped birthmarks are good luck," Marcus said softly, more to himself than to Lily. The little girl's hand flew to her birthmark. "That's what my mommy says too." For the first time, she smiled fully at Marcus. Bill arrived a few minutes later, his shoes clicking against the polished floor. Lily stood up slowly, brushing off her dress. She looked at Marcus, then at Bill, then back at Marcus. "Will you come with us?" she asked Marcus, surprising both men. "You're nice, like my grandpa used to be." Marcus looked at Bill, who nodded his approval. "Of course I will, Lily. Let me just put away my cleaning supplies, and we can all walk to the security office together. Maybe you can tell us more about your mom and dad on the way, what they look like, what they were wearing today. That will help us find them faster." As they walked down the quiet mall corridor, Lily reached up and slipped her small hand into Marcus's large one, trusting him to help guide her back to her family. Neither of them knew yet just how important this simple gesture of trust would become. The security office at Grand Central Mall was a small room with bright fluorescent lights and walls covered in security camera screens. Bill pulled out a comfortable chair for Lily, while Marcus grabbed a juice box from the small refrigerator in the corner. The clock on the wall showed 12:30 a.m. "Apple or orange?" Marcus asked, holding up both options. His voice was gentle, the same tone he had used years ago when trying to comfort his baby sister during thunderstorms. "Apple, please," Lily answered, her small feet swinging back and forth on the big chair. She seemed calmer now, though her eyes were still red from crying. She took the juice box from Marcus with both hands, carefully putting the straw in just like a big girl would. While Bill made calls to the mall's other security guards and began checking the security cameras, Marcus sat down in a chair near Lily, close enough to talk, but not so close as to make her uncomfortable. He noticed how she held her juice box with her pinky finger slightly raised, a small gesture that reminded him of someone, though he couldn't quite place who. "Would you like to hear a story while we wait?" Marcus asked, seeing how Lily's eyes kept darting to the door. "I know some good ones about this mall." Lily nodded, taking a sip of her juice. "Is it a scary story?" Marcus smiled and shook his head. "No, no scary stories. This is a happy story about the time we had penguins visit the mall." "Real penguins?" Lily's eyes grew wide with interest, momentarily forgetting her worries. "Real penguins," Marcus confirmed, leaning forward slightly. "It was for a special event last winter. They waddled right through that hallway where I found you. One of them even tried to swim in the fountain." This got a giggle from Lily, the sound brightening the sterile office. "Did they make a mess?" "Oh, you wouldn't believe it," Marcus chuckled, remembering that chaotic day. "I had to mop the floors 3 times because of all the wet penguin footprints. But it was worth it. They made everyone so happy." As Marcus shared more stories about the mall's adventures, he noticed Lily's body language becoming more relaxed. Her shoulders weren't as tense, and she had stopped looking at the door every few seconds. She even started sharing her own stories. "My mommy and daddy brought me here to buy new shoes," she said, pointing to her light-up sneakers. "And we got ice cream, and mommy said we could look at the toy store. Then I saw a puppy outside the window and..." Her voice got quieter. "I wanted to see it closer, but when I turned around, I couldn't find them anymore." Marcus nodded understandingly. "That must have been scary, but you did the right thing by staying in one place. That makes it easier for us to find your parents." "My daddy's really tall," Lily offered, sitting up straighter. "And he has glasses. Mommy has curly hair like mine, but longer. She was wearing a blue dress today." As Lily described her parents, Marcus pulled out his own wallet and showed her some photos. "You know, I have a family too. These are pictures of my parents from a long time ago." He pointed to an old photograph of a happy couple standing in front of a Christmas tree. Lily leaned forward to look at the photo. "Your mommy's pretty," she said, then added thoughtfully, "She has a nice smile like my mommy." Marcus felt a strange flutter in his chest at those words, but kept his voice steady. "Thank you. She was very kind, just like her smile. Would you like to see another picture?" Before he could show her more, Bill's radio crackled to life. "We found them," a voice reported. "East parking lot entrance. They're pretty worried." "Tell them we got their daughter safe and sound," Bill responded. "We'll bring her right out." Lily jumped up from her chair, excitement and relief clear on her face. But then she turned to Marcus with questioning eyes. "Will you come too?" Marcus looked at Bill, who again nodded his approval. "Of course. Let's go find your parents." As they walked through the quiet mall corridors, Lily held Marcus's hand again, skipping every few steps. Her leg-up shoes created a trail of blinking lights on the freshly mopped floor. Marcus felt a warmth in his heart that he hadn't experienced in years, the simple joy of helping a child feel safe. What he didn't know yet was that this short walk would change his life forever. Sometimes the path to finding your own family starts with helping another find theirs. The walk to the east parking lot entrance felt longer than usual to Marcus. His flashlight beam bounced off the dark windows of closed shops as they made their way through the quiet mall. Lily's small hand remained firmly in his, her light-up sneakers creating a cheerful rhythm against the polished floor. "My mommy's been looking for something too," Lily said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. She was skipping again, seemingly happy to know her parents were near. "Oh, what's she looking for?" Marcus asked, helping her avoid a wet spot on the floor where he hadn't finished mopping. "Her other family," Lily replied simply, the way only children can talk about complicated things. "She has pictures in a big brown folder. Sometimes I see her looking at them when she thinks I'm sleeping." Marcus's heart did a strange flip in his chest. "What do you mean, her other family?" Bill, walking slightly ahead of them, slowed his pace to listen. Even he could sense something important in this conversation. "Mommy says she was adopted," Lily explained, swinging their joined hands back and forth. "That means she had different parents before my grandma and grandpa. She's been trying to find them, but..." She scrunched up her face, trying to remember something. "She only has their last name. Thompson, just like your name tag." Marcus stopped walking so suddenly that Lily bumped into his leg. His free hand went to his name badge, touching the letters that spelled out Thompson, as if seeing them for the first time. "Lily," he said carefully, his voice slightly shaky. "What's your mommy's name?" "Jasmine," Lily answered, looking up at him with curious eyes. "Jasmine Thompson Carter. Daddy says it's a pretty name, like a flower." The world seemed to tilt slightly under Marcus's feet. Jasmine, his sister's name was Jasmine. Could it be, after 20 years? He steadied himself against the wall, memories flooding back. A baby with curly hair and a crescent-shaped birthmark, just like Lily's. "Mr. Marcus." Lily's voice brought him back to the present. "Are you okay? You look funny." Before Marcus could answer, Bill's radio crackled again. "They're getting really anxious out here. How far are you?" "Almost there," Bill responded, giving Marcus a concerned look. "Just around the corner." They resumed walking, but Marcus's mind was racing. He thought about the family photo in his pocket, the one he found earlier that day. Was this why he felt compelled to bring it to work? Was this why tonight felt different from the start? "Lily," Marcus said softly as they approached the entrance. "Does your mommy have any pictures of her birth family?" "Just one," Lily nodded. "It's old and bent at the corners. It has a baby in it. That's my mommy, and there's a boy holding her. Mommy says that might be her brother, but she's not sure. The picture is in her special box at home." Marcus's hand went to his pocket, feeling the outline of his own worn photograph. He wanted to pull it out, to show it to Lily right then, but he knew this wasn't the moment. First, she needed to be reunited with her parents. They could see two figures through the glass doors now, a tall man with glasses and a woman in a blue dress, her curly hair wild from running her hands through it with worry. The woman was pacing back and forth, while the man spoke with another security guard. "Mommy me, Daddy." Lily's voice echoed through the empty mall as she spotted her parents. She let go of Marcus's hand and ran forward, her shoes lighting up the dark floor with each step. Marcus hung back, his heart pounding. He watched as Lily's parents scooped her up in a tight embrace, their relief visible even from a distance. The woman, could it really be Jasmine, was crying and kissing Lily's face, checking her over for any injuries. Bill stepped forward to explain the situation to the parents, but Marcus remained where he was, partially hidden in the shadow of a column. He touched the photo in his pocket again, thinking of all the times over the years he had imagined finding his sister. Now, watching the family reunion in front of him, he wondered if his search was finally over. The moment of truth was coming, and Marcus Thompson, the night janitor who had spent 20 years wondering about his sister, found himself both terrified and hopeful about what would happen next. Time seemed to slow down as Marcus stepped out of the shadows and into the bright light of the mall entrance. Bill was explaining to Lily's parents how their daughter had been found, but Marcus barely heard the words. His eyes were fixed on the woman in the blue dress who held Lily tightly in her arms. She looked so much like their mother that it took his breath away. The same high cheekbones, the same curly hair that refused to stay in place, even the way she stood, slightly tilted to one side, just like their mother used to stand. Marcus's hands trembled as he touched the photo in his pocket again. "And this is Marcus Thompson, our night janitor who found Lily," Bill was saying, gesturing toward him. He kept her calm and... Thompson. Jasmine's head snapped up at the name, her eyes meeting Marcus's for the first time. She set Lily down slowly, her hands shaking slightly as she took a small step forward. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as everyone fell silent. Even Lily, usually chatty, seemed to sense the importance of this moment. She looked back and forth between her mother and Marcus, her small forehead wrinkled in confusion. "Yes, ma'am," Marcus said softly, his voice rough with emotion. "Marcus Thompson." His fingers found the old photograph and with great care, he pulled it from his pocket. The edges were worn smooth from years of handling. Jasmine's husband, still holding Lily's hand, watched with growing curiosity as his wife took another step toward Marcus. "Jas?" he asked gently. "What is it?" But Jasmine wasn't listening. Her eyes were locked on the photograph in Marcus's hands. "That photo," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I have the same one, in my memory box at home, but mine is. Bent at the corners, Marcus finished for her, his vision blurring with tears. "Because you used to carry it around in your little purple purse when you were 3 years old. You wouldn't go anywhere without it." Lily tugged on her father's sleeve. Daddy, why is Mommy crying? Marcus held out the photograph with shaking hands. In it, a teenage boy sat on a worn couch, carefully holding a baby girl. Behind them stood a proud couple, their parents, smiling at the camera. The baby wore a tiny white dress with pink ribbons, and if you looked closely, you could see a small crescent-shaped birthmark behind her ear. Jasmine reached for the photo, her fingertips barely touching its surface as if she feared it might disappear. This was taken on my christening day, she said softly. I found out when I started searching for my birth family. The boy in the photo? My brother. His name was Marcus, they said together. The silence in the mall entrance was broken only by the soft hum of the lights and Lily's light-up sneakers blinking against the floor. Bill quietly stepped back, giving the family some space, but we couldn't help but watch this incredible moment unfold. I have your eyes, Jasmine said, looking up from the photo to study Marcus's face. Mom's cheekbones, but your eyes. I used to stare at this picture for hours, wondering. Marcus nodded, unable to speak for a moment. When he finally found his voice, it was barely above a whisper. I never stopped looking for you. Every time I saw a young woman with curly hair like Mom's, I would wonder. Mommy? Lily's voice cut through the emotional tension. Is Mr. Marcus the brother from your special box? The one you've been trying to find? Jasmine knelt down next to her daughter, tears streaming freely down her face now. Yes, baby, I think he is. She looked up at Marcus again. But we need to be sure. We need to. Marcus reached into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. From it, he removed his driver's license and an old folded piece of paper, a certificate of birth for Jasmine Murray Thompson, born 28 years ago at City General Hospital. Jasmine's husband stepped forward, placing a supportive hand on his wife's shoulder. The look on his face showed that he understood the magnitude of what was happening. This wasn't just the end of a night's search for their daughter, but the end of a much longer search for his wife's past. The security office felt much warmer now with 5 people inside. Bill had brought in extra chairs, and cups of vending machine coffee sat steaming on the desk. It was nearly 2 a.m., but nobody was thinking about the time. The night shift had become a family reunion. Jasmine sat close to Marcus, both of them looking through the contents of his wallet. Every piece of paper, every old photo seemed to unlock another memory. Her husband Michael sat nearby, holding a sleepy Lily in his lap. The little girl fought to keep her eyes open, not wanting to miss anything. I remember this day, Marcus said, pointing to a faded Polaroid of a Christmas morning. You were just learning to walk. Mom and Dad got you this little pink walker, and you wouldn't let anyone help you use it. Jasmine touched the photo gently. I was so stubborn even then. Just like Mom, Marcus smiled. Then his face grew serious. Jasmine, I need to tell you about that day, the day they had to give you up. I was old enough to remember, and you deserve to know the truth. Michael shifted in his chair, holding Lily a little tighter. Should I take her outside? No, Jasmine said quietly. She's family too, and she's almost asleep anyway. Marcus took a deep breath and pulled out the birth certificate again. Mom and Dad loved you so much, Jasmine, but 1995 was a terrible year for us. Dad lost his job at the factory, Mom got sick, and the medical bills. He paused, collecting himself. They had to make an impossible choice. They couldn't take care of both of us, and they knew I was old enough to at least understand what was happening. Tears rolled down Jasmine's cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. Did they ever regret it? Every single day, Marcus said softly, but they also knew you were with a good family. The adoption agency sent one photo of you with your new parents. Mom kept it under her pillow until the day she died. Bill quietly excused himself from the office, feeling like an intruder in this intimate moment. But before he left, he placed a box of tissues on the desk. What were they like? Jasmine asked, reaching for a tissue. Our parents? Marcus smiled, remembering. Dad was the best storyteller you'd ever meet. He could make up stories about anything, the clouds, the trees, even that old car he could never get running right. And Mom, his voice caught. Mom was the strongest person I've ever known. She worked 2 jobs after Dad lost his, but she never complained. She just kept going, kept loving us. Like you, Michael said suddenly, looking at his wife. That's where you get it from, That's strength. I've always wondered. Lily stirred in her father's lap. Is Mr. Marcus my uncle now? She asked sleepily. The question brought smiles through the tears. Yes, baby, Jasmine answered. He's your Uncle Marcus. Cool, Lily mumbled, snuggling deeper into her father's chest. He tells good stories about penguins. Marcus reached into his pocket one last time and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. Mom wrote this letter before she passed away 5 years ago. She wanted me to give it to you if I ever found you. He held it out to Jasmine with slightly shaking hands. Jasmine stared at the folded paper, but didn't take it yet. I'm scared, she whispered. What if she was angry with me? For not finding them sooner? Mom could never be angry with you, Marcus assured her. She understood why you might not want to look for us. They both did. This letter, it's not about guilt or anger. It's about love. Michael squeezed his wife's shoulder supportively. Take your time, honey. There's no rush. Finally, Jasmine reached out and took the letter. The paper was soft from years of being carried around, waiting for this moment. As she carefully unfolded it, a small photo fell out, their mother in her favorite blue dress, smiling at the camera. My dearest Jasmine, she began reading aloud, her voice trembling. If you're reading this, then your brother has finally found you, just like he always promised he would. The days following that remarkable night at the mall passed in a whirlwind of emotions and discoveries. Marcus took a week off from his janitorial duties, the first vacation he had requested in 5 years. Every day brought new revelations as brother and sister worked to bridge the 20-year gap in their lives. They sat in Jasmine and Michael's cozy living room, surrounded by photo albums and memory boxes from both families. Lily had turned the reunion into her own special project, carefully organizing photos into a timeline on the living room floor. And this is me when I started high school, Jasmine said, showing Marcus a photo of her younger self in a blue graduation dress. My adoptive parents, they're wonderful people, Marcus. They made sure I knew about my birth family, never hid anything from me. Marcus nodded, touched by the love and understanding shown by Jasmine's adoptive family. I'd like to meet them someday, to thank them for giving you such a good life. They want to meet you too. Jasmine smiled, then pulled out another photo. Look what Mom gave me when I turned 16. It was a small gold locket, and inside was a tiny photo of their birth parents. Marcus recognized it immediately. He had helped their mother choose that photo specifically for the locket, though he never knew what had happened to it. You're wearing it now, he noticed, seeing the chain around her neck. Every day, Jasmine touched the locket gently. Even before I knew the whole story, it helped me feel connected to them somehow. Lily bounced into the room, carrying a plate of cookies she had helped her father bake. Uncle Marcus, Daddy says you have to try these. I put extra chocolate chips in yours. The way she said Uncle Marcus, so naturally, as if he had always been part of their family, made his heart swell. He took a cookie and made an exaggerated mum sound that made Lily giggle. You know what else? Lily said, settling down among the photos. Daddy says I can show you my school tomorrow. It's show and tell day, and I want to show you to my whole class. Marcus looked at Michael, who was leaning against the doorframe with a warm smile. Really? Would that be okay? Of course, Michael nodded. Your family now. Besides, Lily's been telling everyone about her cool uncle who saved her at the mall. Her teacher's actually excited to meet you. Later that evening, as the sun set outside the living room windows, Jasmine brought out one last box she had been saving. These are Mom's recipes, she said softly. My adoptive mom saved them from the adoption agency's files. I've never been able to make them quite right. Marcus's eyes lit up. The Sunday dinners. I remember how Mom used to make that special cornbread. They sat together, then laughed at the shared memory. Would you teach me? Jasmine asked. How she used to make it? Better yet, Marcus smiled. Why don't we learn together? We can start our own Sunday dinner tradition. Your house, my house, rotating every week. Lily, who had been quietly arranging photos, looked up excitedly. Can I help cook too? Of course, sweetie. Jasmine pulled her daughter close. You can be our official taste tester. As evening turned to night, Marcus watched his newfound family with a full heart. Jasmine and Michael sat close together on the couch, looking through more photos. Lily had fallen asleep among her carefully arranged timeline of family pictures, her small hand resting on a photo of her grandmother. The hole in Marcus's life, the one that had been there for 20 years, was finally filling up with new memories, new love, and new possibilities. He thought about his night shift at the mall, how just a few days ago he had been talking to empty chairs and cleaning floors in solitude. "What are you thinking about?" Jasmine asked, noticing his thoughtful expression. "About how sometimes the best things in life happen when you're just doing your job," he answered. "And about how Mom and Dad would be so happy right now, seeing their family together again." Michael stood up, checking his watch. "I think this calls for some ice cream. Lily's favorite shop is still open. Family tradition." Family tradition. Marcus and Jasmine agreed together, their voices blending just like they were always meant to. 1 year had passed since that fateful night at Grand Central Mall. The mall itself hadn't changed much. The same stores, the same shining floors, the same bustling crowds. But for Marcus Thompson, everything was different. He still worked the night shift, taking pride in keeping the mall clean and safe. But now, a small bronze plaque hung near the east entrance, right next to the big potted plant where he had found Lily. It read, "Where family found family, a Thompson family miracle, December 2024. Tonight, Marcus wasn't alone on his shift. Lily skipped alongside his cleaning cart, wearing a miniature janitor's vest that he had specially made for her. It was their monthly clean-up adventure night, a tradition that started when she begged to help her uncle at work. "Remember to put up the wet floor sign, Uncle Marcus," Lily reminded him seriously, pointing to a spot he had just mopped. At 7 years old now, she took her role as assistant mall cleaner very seriously. "Good catch, sweetie," Marcus smiled, setting up the yellow sign. "Your grandma would have loved seeing you help like this. She always said a clean home is a happy home." "Even if the home is a mall?" Lily asked, her light-up sneakers. She insisted on getting new ones every year, linking against the polished floor. "Especially if it's a mall," Marcus laughed, remembering how his mother would have loved seeing this moment. Their quiet work was interrupted by familiar voices. Jasmine and Michael appeared around the corner, carrying take-out bags that filled the air with the smell of Chinese food. "Midnight picnic," Lily announced happily, running to hug her parents. This too had become a tradition. Once a month, the whole family would join Marcus for his shift, sharing a late dinner and helping with small tasks. The mall's management had officially approved these family nights after hearing their story. It had brought good publicity to the mall, and Marcus's 20 years of dedicated service had earned him some special privileges. They set up their feast in the food court, the empty space feeling cozy rather than lonely. Jasmine pulled out containers of food while Michael arranged chairs around one of the tables. "Guess what?" Jasmine said as they settled in to eat. "I got a call from the adoption support group today. They want us to speak at their next meeting, share our story with other families who are searching." Marcus nodded thoughtfully, passing out napkins. "Do you think we should?" "I think we have to," Jasmine replied. "If our story can give hope to even one person." She touched the locket she still wore every day. "Plus, I've been thinking about Mom and Dad a lot lately, about how they never gave up hope that we'd find each other someday. Like the story you told at my school." Lily piped up, expertly using her chopsticks, a skill Uncle Marcus had taught her. Everyone cried, even Mrs. Johnson. Michael chuckled. That career day presentation certainly was memorable. I don't think any other kid had an uncle who could tell a story like that. They ate and chatted, their laughter echoing through the empty mall. Marcus looked around at his family, his sister who had found her way back to him, his brother-in-law who had welcomed him with open arms, and his niece who had been the miracle that brought them all together. After dinner, as they helped Marcus finish his cleaning rounds, Jasmine linked her arm through his. "You know what Mom wrote in that letter?" she said softly. "That love always finds its way home." She was right, Marcus replied, watching Lily attempt to push the cleaning cart while Michael guided her. Though I don't think she imagined home would be a mall. Later that night, after his family had gone home and the mall was quiet again, Marcus stood by the plaque near the east entrance. He touched it gently, remembering that night 1 year ago. The security cameras caught him smiling, and somewhere in the control room, Bill watched on his monitor and smiled too. Marcus Thompson, the night janitor who had spent 20 years cleaning floors and carrying hope in his pocket, finally had everything he ever wanted. His mop bucket still held clean water for the night's work, but his heart no longer held the weight of loss. Instead, it was full of family dinners, Sunday traditions, and the joy of a little girl's light-up shoes dancing across his freshly cleaned floors.